Reddit Ask Me Anything. My little sister has reactive attachment disorder, the same disorder that plagued Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy and Saddam Hussein. Ask me anything. Not sure how popular this will be, but as hellish as it has made my life, it is a fascinating subject. A bit about RAD. It occurs in the formative years of a child's life. A major disturbance, abuse, abandonment etc. causes the child to be unable to attach to parents. In response to this, the child, as it grows, either pushes everyone away in different ways or tries too hard to attach and becomes scarily clingy. Edit. Just want to say a big thanks to you all for your comments and questions. I didn't expect to get this much feedback. It's nice to hear some success stories from some of you, and for those who are dealing with family members that are in the same or similar boats, I wish you all the best and just want you to remember that you just have to keep trying. Some days it really is the worst thing in the world for you, but you will get through it. The cause was her being abandoned by my aunt at the age of 3. She is my cousin by blood and we adopted her. She is now 16 and has recently run away from home to live with her boyfriend who is also 16. Things she has done are different forms of manipulation and extensive lying. One of my favorite stories about her is a time where she had to clean my closet. At this time we were doing restitution for punishments as nothing seemed to stick. She wronged someone. She had to do something to make up for it. This time was cleaning my closet. I decided to give myself a spa day, basically doing a face mask. While in our room, she started whispering threats under her breath. I made some comment in return that she didn't like, so she whipped a hanger at me from across the room. I called my mum in and told her. My sister's response was to say no. I didn't do that. I picked up the hanger which had hit me in the face, and it had some of my face mask on it, pointed this out, and she claimed it slipped. Multiple times she has framed kids in her classes because she didn't like them by framing them to get them kicked out of school. She lies and frames people a lot. I was diagnosed with RAD and borderline personality disorder in 2005. It stemmed from being neglected by my mother, having an absent paranoid schizophrenic father, and being moved from home to home in foster care. As a result, it is very easy for me to make friends, but close to impossible for me to maintain friendships. I manipulate people into liking me, so I have lots of acquaintances, but as soon as I get close, I cling desperately to them until I get paranoid that every little thing they do is a result of them no longer liking me, so my demeanor towards them changes drastically. I become cold and aloof and distant, hoping they'll try to chase me. When that doesn't work, and they grow distant, I become clingy again. I recognize it, and I try to stop it before it happens, but it's very much an emotional thing and less cognitive. It's hard to stop an emotion. I make guys fall in love with me by trying to be a manic pixie dream girl, then I get too close and open up all at once, losing the mystery they once loved, and they run for the hills. I've been in a committed relationship for the last 3 years, but I have to work really hard every day to maintain it, now that I don't have my manipulation tactics to fall back on. I've never been violent or had run-ins with the law. The worst behavior I've exhibited is a dislike of authority figures and self-harm for a few years in my teens. My sister has gone the opposite route. She kind of holds her friends at a distance, acts as though they are the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then drops them when she doesn't need or want them anymore. She pushes away because she's afraid of attaching. Might I ask how it is you manage to keep yourself in the moment and aware of your behavior? That's something my sister hasn't managed to do yet. My brother was also diagnosed with RAD. We adopted him when he was a kid, and it was a very rough 5 years gaining his trust. Great news is that he did. He is an amazing, very successful man with a great family. It is not always a life sentence with the right support and help. I'm very glad to hear that you guys have had a happy ending. The right support and help are incredibly important, and unfortunately for my sister, no amount of help has been able to get her on the right track as of yet, but the support is not always needed for the child. My mother has probably benefited the most from therapies for my sister, because she takes a lot of the blame on herself and feels that she is always dealing with it wrong. Again, though, I'm really happy things worked out with your family. That is wonderful to hear. I'm sorry that you guys are dealing with that. I actually was in counseling and a support group during this time. It is so hard on the family that are trying to do their best for their loved one. I understand your family's pain and wish you the best. Give your sister a hug from one sister to another. That is only one of the diagnoses that has been given to my stepson. I feel for you. They are manipulators and cannot be trusted. How old is your stepson? They are huge manipulators for sure, and it is incredibly difficult to trust them, but in the end you just have to live with it. As hard as it is most days, you just have to get up and keep trying. He is 12 right now. He is adopted. The counselors all say this is part of the problem. He has caused so many problems at home and school. He is currently waiting on a hearing in juvenile court for grabbing some girl's twat in school. It was the second time in 2 weeks. The judge has already said he is going to put him in a detention center. It is now at the point everyone hopes that is what happens. He was in a group home from last May until January of this year. They discharged him because they could not control him. Oh, I feel for you. My mum is here and she knows exactly how you feel. I do hope that this works for him, and I hope that your family is able to keep growing and that no one ever feels like what they've done to help is wrong. I hope everything works out. What's the worst thing that she's done? Probably the worst thing so far is when last year she told all her friends that my parents abuse her. Incredibly far from the truth, but it was almost got my mother beat up by some other girl's father. How did she get diagnosed with RAD? And does that in any way help her understand how she acts the way she does? When she would continually put up fights over simple things, wasn't learning from her mistakes the way most kids do. We started taking her to a psychologist. It took a few tries before we finally figured out exactly what it was, but it was finally pinned down to RAD. It was initially pointed out by one of the parents at her second preschool. This one was for children with behavioral problems. She was kicked out of the first because she kept stealing things from the other kids and would never listen to the teachers. Also, just realized I forgot to answer the second part of your question last night. She is aware of her problems and what she does, but she either doesn't care half the time, partly from being a teenager, but otherwise knowing doesn't really help her. When she's in the moment she just acts the way she always has. Knowing has so far had no real impact on the behavior. What is your relationship with her like? Do you think you will try to continue forming a bond with her throughout adulthood, or would you like to become estranged? I would hate to become a stranger. After all that we've been through, I couldn't see that happening. We usually have a normal sister relationship, but when we were younger and shared a room, she would always press my buttons and manipulated me into doing things for her. I went away to school this year, so we've become distant, but even though she is now gone from home, I'm attempting to be friendly to maintain some form of a bond. Where do you see her ending up in life? At the moment, I see her repeating her mother's mistakes. Getting pregnant within the next couple of years. I don't see her coming back home anytime soon, and if she does it will be for money. She will likely marry some man that she can take advantage of, and the poor bastard won't see it coming. So, it's like the bad seed, but without the murder part? Is she aware she has this disorder, and is there any possible way to make it less severe? So far no murder. How she is fully aware, yes. The best thing for it is therapy and being in the moment. By accepting what's at hand, as opposed to using it as an excuse, can make it easier to deal with. What my sister does is use it as an excuse to manipulate others. That was a long time ago, but now that she is 16, would you say her manipulations have gotten any more sophisticated? She might attempt to frame people often, but is she actually good at doing so? Oh boy, is she ever good at it. Most recently were her tales about my family abusing her and taking away her rights and us not feeding her. She would go to school to tell her friends this, and it has had a lot of parents hate my mum for a long time. We think she may have recently framed another runaway that was also living at this boyfriend's house, where she is now staying. My sister likes to have the spotlight, so it was no surprise when, 2 weeks after my sister's arrival, the other girl was kicked out for supposedly stealing money and cigarettes. This other girl had also been at the house for about 5 months with no complaints before my sister got there, hence out suspicions. What was the worst outburst she has ever had? There are so many to choose from. Once she jumped on my mum's back because she was mad because she wasn't doing something she was supposed to and was mad that she had to, then proceeded to start beating on my mum. Another time she came at my mum with a screwdriver. Another time with a shard of hardwood flooring. As you can see, my mum gets the brunt of it. When she was little and had temper tantrums, they would literally rattle the windows. So, what's the difference between someone with RAD and a sociopath? Pretty much nothing, since one leads to the other. Sociopaths are formed from some trauma in life, and RAD is one of those things that leads to it. Not exactly. We have no idea what causes someone to become a sociopath. However, there are theories that state a significant trauma might be the cause, and it certainly is in some cases, just not all or even most. A sociopath is someone who literally has no conscience. This is a person that not only takes pleasure from the pain of others, but also relishes in causing it. A sociopath feels literally no remorse for anything. In fact, they tend to have no emotions other than anger, pleasure from hurting people, and a need for personal gain. They are always hugely manipulative and very good liars. RAD may definitely lead up to it in some cases, but there are plenty of people who have RAD that are not sociopaths. Especially since people with RAD actually have emotions. In fact, the reason they tend to push people away is because they feel scared and sad and hurt. Sources: I have, undiagnosed officially, RAD, and so does my boyfriend of 3 years. My mother is a sociopath, literally. Complete with torturing and killing animals, coupled with Munchausen by proxy syndrome, which is half of the cause of my RAD, and I'm currently going to school to be a psychologist specializing in counseling criminals deemed mentally incompetent to stand trial.